What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing an Infernoid deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because this deck just got some amazing support out of Terminal Revenge, even giving us an awesome new extra card, Infernoid Evil, which is such a powerful card. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, become part of the notification squad, and definitely check the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Anunku. Anunku is an awesome boss monster for this deck with a crazy powerful effect that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or your graveyard by banishing 3 Infernoid monsters from your hand or field, while the total levels and ranks of all effect monsters that you control are 8 or lower and cannot be special summoned by other ways. That's actually how they balance a lot of the Infernoid monsters. You cannot summon them without having monsters on the field that have less than rank 8 or level 8, which is something important to keep in note about all of your main deck Infernoid monsters that special summon themselves off their own effects. But this card also has a really cool ability that when this card is special summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field, and once per turn, during either player's turn, when a spell or trap card or effect is activated, you contribute 1 monster to negate the activation if you do banish that card, which is such a cool effect. This card is also walking the gate. We then play 2 copies of Deviati. Deviati is actually one of my favorite Infernoid monsters of all. This card is very similar to your copy of Anunku that has the ability cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or your graveyard by banishing 3 Infernoid monsters from your hand or graveyard. This card also is a walking negate because when this card is special summoned, you can destroy all spells and traps on the field except void cards, and once per turn during either player's turn, when another monster effect is activated, you can contribute a monster to negate the activation if you banish it, which is such a powerful ability. We then play a single copy of Ontadel. Ontadel is really good as an OTK piece in the deck, and this card has the ability cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or your graveyard by banishing 2 Infernoid monsters from your hand or grave. But this card is really good because when this card destroys an opponent's monster at battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can activate this effect that this card can make a second attack in a row, which is really cool. This card also has a really cool effect that a lot of your Infernoid monsters actually share, that once per turn, quick effect, you can contribute a monster and then target a card your opponent's graveyard and banish it, which is a really cool ability. We then play 2 copies of Semestus. Semestus is really good as a 2-of in the build because this card is a crazy powerful effect that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or grave by banishing 2 Infernoid monsters from your hand or your graveyard, and it also has a really cool ability that basically at the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked an opponent's monster, you can actually banish 1 card on the field and it doesn't target, which is such a cool effect. We then play 2 copies of Sajet. Sajet is amazing in this deck as a 2-of because this card has a really insane ability to be able to get cards out of your opponent's extract, and also summons the same way as your copy of Ontadel, that you have to banish 2 Infernoid monsters from your hand or graveyard to be able to special summon out this card. But when this card declares an attack, you can actually banish 1 monster from your opponent's extract, their choice, which is such a cool ability. We then play a single copy of the level 5 Infernoid. This card is just a good one of the deck to be able to play as a name. You don't summon it out all that often, but you do need it as a name for the deck. We then play 2 copies of Patrulia. Patrulia is really good as a 2-of in the deck. This card pops spells and traps on the field. And this card is really cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 1 Inferno monster from your hand or graveyard. And this card also has a really cool ability once per turn. You can target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it. But this card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. We can play a single copy of Harmonic. Harmonic is really good, but you only need a single copy of this card. This card pops monsters on the field. As once per turn, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it, but this card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. We then play a single copy of Antera. Antera is definitely a 1-of in the build. It does have 0 attack points, but it's still really good in the deck because once per turn, you can target a face-up card that your opponent controls and return it back to the hand. We then play a single copy of the level 1 Infernoid monster Premise. This card is really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card's ability cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by banishing an Inferno monster from your hand or your graveyard. And this card lets you target a set card on the field and shuffle it into the deck, which is a really cool effect to be able to instantly get a card off the field. We then play 3 copies of Decatron. Decatron is what the entire deck is based around, and this card is the most important card in the entire deck. This card has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send 1 Infernoid monster from your deck to the graveyard, except another copy of Decatron, and if you do, increase this card's level by the level of monsters sent to the graveyard. And if you do, this card's name becomes that monster's name, and you replace this monster's effect with that monster's original effect, which is really cool that you can actually copy the effects of Deviati and Anunku, which is the 2 that you usually copy so that you get 2 walking negates on your side of the field when you summon out 2 copies of Decatron off of Void Feast along with your copy of Sajet, which is really cool to instantly summon them out with Void Feast to your side of the field. So what you do is just activate your copy of Void Feast, special summon out 2 copies of Decatron, a copy of Sajet, then use your Decatrons. You'll send your copy of Deviati and Anunku to the graveyard so they get those walking negate effects. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Triple Tactics Thrust. Thrust is really good as a 1-of in the deck, because we have a lot of cards in this deck that this card can actually search, and it's just a really good 1-of in the build. We then play a single copy of Talents. Talents is also really good as a 1-of in the deck, because this card has a really cool ability to let you draw 2 cards, take control of an opponent's monster, or look at your opponent's hand and choose a card from it and shuffle it into the deck, which is amazing about this card. You could play 2 copies of Talents over the copy of Thrust if you don't have a copy of Thrust, because it is a more budget option to play Talents over Thrust, but if you do have your copies of Thrust, definitely play at least 1 in this deck. We then play a single copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction is amazing as we want to get our Infernoids into the graveyard as quickly as possible so we can start going in for plays. We then play a single copy of 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is amazing in this deck as a 1-of, so we can summon out our copy of Decatron directly from our deck to our side of the field. We play a single copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion's amazing as a 1-of in this deck because it instantly summons out our copy of Infernoid Evil because it's a level 1 fusion monster and you really want to get to that card as quickly as possible. We then play a single copy of Monster Gate. Monster Gate's really good in this deck just as a 1-of because you tribute a monster to be able to excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate a monster that can't be normal summoned or set, and you special summon that monster, send the other excavated cards to the graveyard, which is really cool to be able to use this card in the deck because the only monster we can actually normal summon out of all of our Infernoid monsters is actually Decatron, meaning if you hit any of these other monsters, they instantly go to the graveyard because Decatron is the only 1 monster in the deck that you can actually summon out to your side of the field by normal summon. All the rest of them cannot be normal summoned or set. They must be special summoned by their own effects, which is really amazing. We then play a single copy of Reasoning for the exact same reason, which is really funny about this card because it just basically gets a bunch of Infernoid monsters into the graveyard. We then play 2 copies of Dark Fusion. I really like playing Dark Fusion at 2 in this build because it helps us go in for a copy of Infernoid Evil. This card lets you send cards from your hand or your side of the field to the graveyard to fusion summon a fusion monster. It's lists fusion theme monsters as material, which is really cool to be able to do. Also, it has a really cool effect that the special summon monster cannot be targeted by card effects or other monster spell traps or effects this turn, which is such a cool ability that it just basically gives you some protection for your copy of Infernoid Evil, because you want to be able to summon out your copy of Evil, basically making this card a polymerization for your copy of Infernoid Evil. We then play a single copy of Void Breach. Void Breach is really good, but just as a 1-of in the build, make sure Inferno monsters absolutely massive, because Inferno monsters that you control gain 100 attack for each of your banished Inferno monsters, and if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are fiends, you can activate one of these effects to add one of your banished Inferno monsters to your hand, or special summon an Inferno monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is a really cool ability. We then play 2 copies of Reignition. Reignite is really good as a 2-of in the deck, and I really like this card in the deck to be able to play. It's basically like card destruction. It lets you reveal an Infernoid monster or a void spell or trap card in your hand and discard your entire hand, then draw cards equal to the number of cards discarded, which is a pretty cool ability. But again, I feel like you only need like 1 or 2 copies of this card in the deck because it's really good to be able to draw into, but you do have to have a void card to be able to use it. It also has the ability, if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are fiend monsters, except the turn this card was sent to the grave, you manage this card in the graveyard and then target up to 11 of your banished Infernoid monsters with different names and return them back to the graveyard, but you can only use that effect once per duel. This card is really good as a 2-of in the deck, and I really like it in the deck as a 2-of because it just lets you recycle your resources while also basically getting a bunch of bricks out of your hand. We then play 3 copies of Void Imagination. Imagination is really good as a 3-of in the deck because this card makes it so Inferno monsters you control, whose original levels 2 or higher, becomes level 1, and all battle damage they inflict to your opponent is halved, which is a little bit of a downside, but it's still really good to be able to play as a 3-of in the deck because it lets you fusion summon an Inferno fusion monster from your X deck, which is really cool to be able to do. We then play 3 copies of Void Vanishment. Vanishment is definitely a 3-of in the build because this card is a really cool ability that you can discard a card to add a void spell or trap from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card or null or void. Also, you cannot normal summon or special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Infernoid monsters, which is totally fine, but it helps you instantly get to your copy of your Void Feast, which is one of the most powerful cards in the entire deck to be able to get to. We then play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. Droplets is definitely a 3-of in the deck because we want our Inferno monsters into the graveyard anyways, but this card is really good at helping you turn your opponent's monsters' effects off while helping us go in for game. This card is amazing in the deck as a 3-of. It's just overall a fantastic card. So, that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 2, and that's going to be 2 copies of Void Feast. Void Feast is definitely a 2-of in the build, but you only need 2 copies of this card because it's searchable in the deck, and this card has a really cool ability to send a Void spell or trap from your hand or face up from field to grave to be able to special summon up to 3 Inferno monsters from your deck whose total level exactly equal 8, ignoring their summoning conditions, meaning you can summon a copy of Sajet and 2 copies of Decatron to your side of the field, and then use your 2 copies of Decatron to send Deviati and Anunku to the graveyard, getting them to be walking gates, which is absolutely amazing, and I love that about this card. This card is amazing and one of the key cards in the entire deck to be able to activate, and a card you always want to end with on your side of the field, so you can summon out those copies of Decatron to your side of the field along with your copy of Sajet. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Infernoid Evil. This card is an amazing 2-of in the build, and I absolutely love this card. It just takes any 2 Inferno monsters to make this card, and if this card is fusion summoned, you can banish an Inferno monster from your graveyard to send Inferno monsters with different names from your graveyard, from your deck to the graveyard, equal to the banished monster's level, which is such a powerful effect, especially if you banish something like an Anunku or Deviati to be able to banish like 9 or 10 Inferno monsters, just send them to the graveyard, which is absolutely insane because that means you're going off with this deck. This card also has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished, you can actually add a void spell or trap from your deck to your hand, instantly getting to the exact card that you need, making this the most powerful support card this deck has ever gotten besides Decatron, and it's just absolutely amazing how powerful this card is for this build. We then play a single copy of Infernoid Tiara. This card is really good as a 1-of in the deck, just as a big boss monster that we can summon. It does require an Anunku and Deviati plus another Infernoid monster to make this card, and it has some really powerful abilities depending on the amount of Infernoid cards that you put into this card for its fusion summon. We then play a single copy of Flood. Flood is really cool. I absolutely love that this card mirrors the fusion monster for its artwork, like these 2 cards are facing one another. It's so cool about the artwork. Really attention to detail for this one. I really like this card as well. It is a Link 4, but it's really good to end on this card. And it has the ability, when this card, or when your opponent would special summon a monster, quick effect, you can tribute 1 monster to negate the summon, and if you do, banish that monster or monsters. And if a card is banished from the graveyard except during a damage step, you can can banish a card on the field, non-targeting, and if this link summon card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon an Inferno monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is such a powerful effect because you can instantly summon Deviati or Nunku to your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Swarmship. Swarmship is just really good to be able to play in the decks. We do play Bestower of Flames as well. One copy of Access Code to be able to pop multiple cards on the field. One copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa is just amazing in this deck because you can summon this card to your side of the field and get multiple monster negates. One copy of Bestower of Flame. Bestower of Flame is really good because we are playing a fire deck, so this card is really good at bringing back your copy of Decatron back to your side of the field. One copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff. Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps. A single copy of Hita. Hita's really good to be able to play in the deck because it can bring back cards like Ash Blossom from your opponent's graveyard back to your side of the field, or a fire monster to your side of the field so you can link climb. One copy of SP. SP is really good in the deck as a 1-0, but if you don't have this card, you don't have to play it in the deck. So if you don't have this card, you can change it out for Nightmare Cerberus instead for a more budget option, but it's a really good card if you do have it to be able to play it because it's such a powerful card as a double interruption. We then play a single copy of IP. IP is really good in the deck as a 1-of because you can make this card extremely easily in the deck, and then basically going for SP or your copy of Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn. One copy of Relinquished Anima because we do have a lot of level 1 monsters in the deck and helps out a lot to be able to gobble up opponent's monsters. And finally, a single copy of Gravity Controller. Gravity Controller is really good to be able to play because you want to usually make your copy of Infernoid Evil in the extra monster zone and then link it away for your copy of Gravity Controller so you can get a bounce, which is really nice. The reason you play so many link monsters in this deck, by the way, is because they don't have levels or ranks, so they don't count toward the level 8 that you need to have off the field to be able to summon your copies of your Inferno monsters. So it's really good to play this amount of link monsters in the deck because you don't want to have a bunch of levels on the field so you can't summon your Inferno monsters. Plus, they're really good at link climbing. So that's it for the deck, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys have never played Infernoid before, you should definitely give this deck a try. It's really fun to be able to play. It's insane now that we have Infernoid Evil. If you guys want to see a Snake Eye version of this deck, definitely tell me down in the comments down below. I love to make a version of that deck, and it's really cool just to be able to play this deck a little bit more pure like this. I really like this particular build over the Snake Eye build just because it is pure. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of notifications. Go on, we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.